Whenever we read from the book of Job, we are always faced with the existential problem of evil. It is an existential problem because we are yet to really wrap our minds around it. Why bad things happen to good people. It remains an existential problem. And because many of us are not able to wrap our heads around this problem, you come to realize that there are those who today do not believe in God because of this problem. There are those today who doubt the existence of God because of this problem. There are those who have decided never to go to church because they don't just understand why bad things will happen to good people. So we have this in Job. Such a righteous, holy, just man, but was afflicted by all kinds of evil. Moral evil, emotional, physical evil. He was completely traumatized by evil. Now, when we come to realize that we just cannot understand this problem, then we'll realize the need for us to go beyond our human intellect when we find ourselves before the problem of evil. Because the human mind is too small to comprehend this problem. So what do? I do not have all the answers to the question of evil. I cannot fix the problem. None of us can fix the problem. None of us has all the answers to this question. So we see the need for faith. Now, the need for faith, does not mean that we are escaping from reality, because sometimes there could be the tendency for us to understand faith as an escape from reality. It's like fugamundi, flight from the world mentality. That is not why we have faith. We do not have faith because we have exhausted reason. Why do we have faith? Why do we need faith? Because we come to realize that there is a divine process of knowing that is different from the human process of knowing. So the intellect represents the human process of knowing, but faith represents that divine process of knowing. Why do we need faith? Because the intellect acknowledges and recognizes that it is insufficient by itself. So we need an integration of faith and reason. So let us put on the lens of faith. And when we put on the lens of faith and we look at this problem of evil, we still do not have all the answers to the question. That we are a people of faith and that we believe in God, that doesn't solve the problem. Because the problem still remains. It was the case with Job. He was a just man, recall that. He was a righteous man, but he had all these problems. So faith is not a magic wand that causes all the problems to disappear. In fact, sometimes you might even have the impression that the stronger your faith, the bigger the problem. And why is that the case? When we come to reflect on the need for us to have faith, what it does, the difference faith makes is that it helps us to see the bigger picture. Faith helps us to see the bigger picture of this problem, that evil will not have the final say. That is what faith tells me. Evil will not have the final say. Faith tells me that evil is only temporal. Faith tells me that there will be divine justice. Faith tells me that these too shall pass away. That is a confession of faith. It shall pass away. It is a confession of faith. Why do we need faith? Because, when we are afflicted in every way, we are not crushed. When we are perplexed, we are not driven to despair. When we are persecuted, we are not abandoned. When we are struck down, we are not destroyed. That is where faith is needed, that we are not destroyed. So why is it that God allows us to go through this problem of evil? I've come to realize that, if people get to know that they can pull through problems, do you know what happens? They become more resilient. They become more courageous. If they get to know that they can pull through, and that is what faith tells me, that we can pull through. We are all in this together. We can pull through this mess, and that enables us to be more resilient, to be more courageous, so that I am not broken by the crisis of my life. I am rather made by the crisis of my life. I am rather reformed and renewed by the crisis of my life. I am not broken. That is what faith tells me. So faith could help to generate courage and resilience and perseverance in the face of this problem of evil. So God allows us to go through this, not just to test our faith, but for us to value the faith we have. Because we need faith to go through the storms of life. This is why faith is important, because it gives us the meaning of life. It enables us to see the meaning of life and to see the meaning of the problem of evil. Now we'll come to ask the question, what exactly is the source of evil? Where is it coming from? When we talk about the problem of evil, where exactly is evil coming from? Definitely, it is not coming from God. God is not the source of evil. Who is the source of evil? You and I. That is a bad news. You and I, we are the sources of evil. And I'll tell you why. Because we abuse the freedom that God has given to us. There are those who have chosen to be greedy and selfish and corrupt. God has given us everything for our need and not for our greed. So the reason why that people are in need is because there are those who are greedy. We are the source of the problem. We are the cause of the problem. You look at the environment, there are those who deliberately destroy nature and destroy the climate. And when they do that, what happens? We have natural disasters. We have earthquakes and hurricanes and tsunamis, and we have all those disasters, and there are those who pay for them. There are those who die because of the disasters. God is not to be held responsible. We are to be held responsible. That is the real problem of evil. And so what do? We have this invitation, my dear friends, to respond to this problem. How do we respond to the problem of evil? St. Paul today tells us that the love of Christ impels us. And that is how we respond to the problem of evil. So you have those out there who are out to destroy. What do? We are out to build and to preserve what God has made. That is how we respond to the problem of evil. There are those out there who are corrupt and greedy. What do? We are out there to be accountable. We are out there to serve. We are out there to be transparent, to reveal the values of the kingdom of God. That is how we respond to the problem of evil. We have to be the change we would want to see in our society. Let the change begin with us, from us, in us. This is why our faith is important. This is why it makes all the difference. So today in the gospel, Jesus was in the boat with his disciples, and he was asleep. The sleeping Jesus, he was asleep, and the disciples were terrified. They were terrified, and they looked at him and they asked him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are all perishing? Do you not care?" They were terrified. Do you not care that we are all perishing? And how often do we ask this question? How often do we question God? Do you not care, oh God, that we are sinking? And when we reflect on everything happening to us as a people, just look at the Middle East. We could ask the question, do you not care, oh God, that innocent lives are being killed in the Middle East? Do you not care about the war in Ukraine? Do you not care about those who are perishing and those who are being killed out of corruption in Africa? Do you not care, oh God, the kind of political division we have today in our nation, we ask these questions: do you not care, God? Because we too could be terrified by what we see around us. We could be terrified by the fear of the unknown. Do you not care? But, as they asked this question, recall that Jesus was sleeping in the boat. He was with them in the boat, and he is always with us. And this is why we need faith, because if we are left with the human intellects alone, we could be driven by fear. And that's what happens. Fear is a natural human response to a threat, to a problem, to danger. It is normal to be afraid. But when fear becomes the only response we have to every threat, to every danger, when fear is the only response, then we need help. Then we need God. Then we need faith. Because it reveals that we are broken. Then we need faith. We need God to put our scattered lives, to put the scattered pieces together. That is why we need faith. To put our lives together. They were terrified, but Jesus was in the boat with them. He is always with us in the storms of our lives. He is always with us in the boat. I recall, when people get married, how do we, the vows they profess, you promise one another for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health. That is exactly what Jesus does. He is always with us. In good times, in bad times. He is always with us, for better, for worse. He is always with us in the midst of the storms of our lives. He walks with us, he talks with us, and he tells us that we are his own. Even when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we shall fear no evil, because God is always by our side. This sleeping Jesus, my dear friends, he represents the peaceful presence of God in the midst of the storm. Yes, we have the storms of life. They will always be there. Yes, we have chaos, conflict, crisis. They will always be there. But he says, be still and know that I am God. That is what the sleeping Jesus represents. Be still and know that I am God. Be calm, because he is in control of nature. He is in control of the storms. Be still and know that I am God. The Lord is my light and my help. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Before whom shall I shrink? He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High and abides in the shades of the Almighty says to the Lord, my refuge, my God in whom I trust. When Jesus is absent from our boats, then we shall be overwhelmed by the tempest. We shall be overwhelmed by the storms of life. Yes, that is what happens when he's absent. We shall be broken by our fears. But when Jesus is present in the boats, my dear friends in Christ, the storm will be over. And our lips shall testify to the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living.